T-Boz, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, Mr. Williams. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I couldn't be finer if I was in North Carolina.
Oh, there's a great song by Jody Messina. Head Carolina, tails California. I can't sing. That's why I'm not singing at Toho Lounge, but I'm going to jump around. Folks, go to Toho Lounge tonight. Myron and the boys will be there, and Diane and the rest of the gang, and great guest singers pop in. The food is fabulous. The coffee's great. Nice little location. When you go there, you feel like you're in Greenwich Village, right, Jacques?
That's right.
It's that cool a place. You'll be in there and you'll say, man, I feel like I'm in Greenwich Village. So cool. So good morning. Welcome in. Wow, what a crowd. Holy cow. Come on. Yeah, leave the door open, Dave. Come on in. Oh, Muriel's back. Come on in. Great. Sit down. We got plenty of room on the couches. Oh, first day of fall. Can you believe it, Mr. Williams? Actually, September 21st, Jock and I have been doing this show now for 30 years, and we started out in Kansas on a little game show called What's Up with Doggy. Do you remember that, Jock? And then we got lured in by Big Money and John Williams to come here, and here we are. Dave Ramsey said, guys, we want you here, and so they lured us away from Kansas and that game show, and God, I can't believe we've been doing a show for 30 years. 50,000 watts of power. What a great show. Come on in, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for spending your Thursday morning with me. I know some of you are so busy with businesses and your careers and the kids and your jobs and all that stuff, church responsibilities, community service. But, you know, we're with the A crowd here. This is the varsity crowd that's in here. Come on in. Everybody sit down. You got your pads and pencils. Great. Now, we're going to do a quick little exercise. No, you don't have to stand up. We're going to do a little exercise. Take your right hand and brush your left arm. Remember Jimmy Stewart? I'm going to shake the dust of this town. It's a wonderful life. Now take your left hand and dust your right arm off. Okay, what did you do? You dusted off all the stuff that's given you molto agitato, the aggravation, right? Anything that didn't happen today, anything that didn't happen yesterday, the deal you didn't get, the problem with the kids, the spouse, all of that. Just dust it off like Jimmy Stewart said. You're in the room. Time to rejuvenate, recharge, get a new perspective, focus, and welcome to Words of Wisdom, Moments of Meditation, a big part of the Feel Good Show. Jock, thanks for having me on. So let's get to our quick shout-outs, and then we've got all this stuff to do, and what a topic we have today. So the shout-outs today, just want to thank everyone for the great birthday wishes on Facebook, the people that called. Great Friday night little party with the family, Lady Boz, Rachel, Justin, grandson Jackson, Emily and Storm, and then a nice little Sunday dinner with my dear friends Fred and Lucille and Lady Boz, and that was fabulous. Also a shout-out to Mark Allen Hart. This dude not only does his own show on Sunday, he filled in for Pedro, he filled in for Miles, the Dylan show, and then he filled in this morning for Darcy, and what a job he did. I mean, these people are dedicated. He does his own show, and then he came in 3 times to help the crew, and just a shout-out to him. I've spoken to him many times. If you want to hear a great jazz show, Sunday night, 7 o'clock, listen to him. What a great guy. And thank you for filling in. That's the kind of people we have here, as Jock says. That's the way we roll here. All right, let's see. Friday Eve. Stan, the coffee man. Let's see what we have here in the coffee pot. Oh, what's that? Autumn roast. Oh, God. It almost smells orange. Pumpkin bread, hot chocolate, herbal teas. Oh, wow. And then we have the fruits, the bananas, the vegetables. Come on in, sir. Plenty of room. You can sit right next to Muriel. Plenty of room. Yes, ma'am. There's plenty of room. Don't worry about being late. We didn't really start yet. Come on in. The classroom is always open. Leave the door open. So anyway, back to Stan. So what a wonderful selection. And who sponsored this today, Stan? Giovanni's, the new place on East Main Street, an Italian restaurant. I've heard some great things about it. I haven't been there yet. but a lot of people say it's great. So if you're looking for a great place to have dinner, Giovanni's on East Main Street, and we thank them for sponsoring the Stand, the Coffee Man refreshment table. He's even got some mugs there again. Look at that. And he's wearing orange and brown. You look great, Stan. Thank you for volunteering. All right, our topic today, something that we all do, and these are bad habits that we do. And I know everyone's going to say, not me, Tommy. The two things we're going to talk about today, procrastination and gossiping. Ooh. Now, everyone says they don't do it. We all do it. We've all been guilty of this sin or this bad behavior. But today we're going to talk a little bit different about procrastination. I'm going to come at it from a different angle, and gossiping is pretty much straight ahead. And all of us have these flaws, they're bad habits, and we want to do the best we can to get rid of those things. So let's start. We're going to start with procrastination. We're going to start with Ecclesiastes. And it says, whoever watches the wind will not plant. And whoever looks for the clouds will not reap. All right, what are they talking about? They're talking about not doing anything, waiting for the right time, waiting for things to be perfect. That's procrastination. And we're going to talk about what procrastination does to us physically and mentally. But in Ecclesiastes, they're talking, it's an agricultural community back in those days, and so they're really talking about just people who sit. And if you just sit and decide, and maybe the wind, and maybe the clouds, and maybe this, and maybe that, nothing gets done. We look at a great Bible verse here, and it's Luke chapter 9, verse 50. Now, this story is about when Jesus is looking for followers, right? So he's walking along Galilee, and he sees the first guy, and he says, follow me. The guy's like, yeah, Rabbi, I'm in, man. I got my tie-dye shirt. I'm all for love and peace. I'm in, but I got to bury my father. And Jesus walks along, he sees another guy, says, come follow me. The guy's, yeah, I'm ready. Man, I'm ready. I'm in with you, Rabbi. I love the other guys. I really love the mission. This sounds really cool. But I got to say goodbye to my wife. And so what does Jesus say? No man who puts his hands on the plow turns backwards is fit for service. So what is he talking about? Talking about procrastination. But I'm going to take that a little deeper, and I think the meaning is hidden in there. If we are willing to do things with our family. In other words, if you're looking for success principles, you have to listen to Tony Robbins, okay, and those guys. My shtick is making and helping us, myself included, become a better us to create a better world. So I'm not going to talk about procrastination today in the sense of, cutting the grass and, doing things like that. I mean, those things will get done, all right? I'm going to be talking about procrastinating with your inner self. So when Jesus says, no man who puts his hands on the plow looks backwards is fit for service. The service he's talking about is the service of his mission of love and respect and forgiveness to others. So now we jump down to procrastination. And what I'm going to talk about procrastination is not only with tasks, right? So there are tasks, put the laundry out and all of that. I'm not really so interested in that. But what about your relationships? What about your spouse, your child, your grandchildren, your friends? One day we will get, if you're too busy to get with people, you're too busy. Someday is not a date on the calendar, all right? So we go back to the thing about the people, having to bury their father and say goodbye to their wife. They were too busy. They didn't hear it. They were too busy to go with Jesus and create this new way. And procrastination, so my question is to you, what are you too busy with? What are you procrastinating? What are you putting off that you can't create a better relationship with members of your family or your spouse? We're going to tie these together. We look at the book of Sirach, chapter 28, verse 30. Sinners hug, remember that word, sinners hug their wrath and their anger. So what are we hugging? What are we hugging? What wrath and anger are we hugging that we can't forgive or bring peace in the world, or volunteer our time to community service, call the daughter you haven't spoken to in a while, make amends with the ex-wife or ex-husband, make amends with the child that might have been in rehab. What are we hugging? Sinners hug. I think that's so interesting within the book of Sirach. Sinners hug their wrath and anger. Don't we do that? Don't we? It's almost like that mosquito bite that you're not supposed to scratch or the poison ivy, but boy, you love to scratch it, don't you? Okay? That's what procrastination and gossip's the same thing. We look further down in Matthew chapter 18, verse 35. I think this is one of the most beautiful things I ever read. Forgive with your heart. Boom. So we go right back up to hands on the plow, not fit for service. Forgive with your heart. That's what he's talking about not fit for service. In other words, your heart isn't in it. You're procrastinating. So forgive with your heart. Isn't that not forgive with your lips, because talk is cheap. But what are we putting off, or who are we putting off? What situation, our family, are we putting off that we can't forgive with our heart? Because when you forgive with your heart, then you forget about it. You don't forgive and then 6 months later say, by the way, Frank, I meant to tell you, we really didn't clarify why. No, forgive with your heart, it says in Matthew 18:35. Charles Swindoll says this: the habit of putting off the experience until you can afford it or until the time is right, and knowing how to do it. So putting something off until the time is right, until you could afford it, okay? And waiting to see if things are going to work out the same way. He says that is the biggest burglar of joy. Boom. So procrastination, if we're putting off that forgiveness, we're putting off that phone call, we're putting off getting together with that family member, or visiting that elder mother and father in the nursing home, not just on Christmas and Easter. What we're doing is, if we're waiting for just the time to be just right, or we're having the money to do it and everything falls into place, we're missing the joy. The joy of what? Putting our hands on the plow and being fit for service. That's what procrastination does. It robs us of that joy. Here's some other dangers of procrastination. It brings thorns and weeds, and we become unfruitful. It deteriorates our defenses, and it makes us unreliable. Would you give a task or a project to someone who just keeps putting it off? Maybe I'll do it later. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. It's laziness, right? But we can also be lazy in our relationships. There's two kinds of laziness. There's the people who don't want to work. They want to sit on a couch and eat bonbons and watch TV. But the other laziness is the people who work and got to get this deadline, And what do they leave? What do they not attend? Their family, their loved one, their spouses. On and on it goes. It's the same form of laziness. It's the same form of procrastination. It's the same form of not being fit for service. We in this classroom want to be fit for service. That's why we come here every Thursday. That's why I do these talks, not just for you, but for me. I learn when I do this research. Okay? Don Marquis, and he's an American humorist, says this: procrastination is the art of keeping up with yesterday and avoiding today. Boom. So right back to what I was saying before. Who are we avoiding? What are we avoiding? What are we hugging so tight that we can't make the time to heal, to love, to respect, to help? What are we hugging? What are we avoiding? Jock, it's 11:30. Let's not avoid the sponsors and keep the lights on here. Why don't we go to them and we'll continue on.
And we want to thank you all for tuning in to your local community radio station, WAPJ Torrington. We want to thank our sponsors for allowing us to bring you the quality community radio programming that you are listening to now. Want to make sure that you guys tune in each and every day for live programming here at WAPJ 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And with that being said, we'll turn the floor back over to T-Boz for more words of wisdom and moments of meditation.
Thank you, Mr. William. Gossip, part 2 of our talk today. Gossip is originally an Old English word, God-sib, which means godparent, sibling, God. But then in the 16th century, and I did the research, I don't mean to be picky here, but it was applied to women who were newsmongers, tattletalers, just idle talk and things like that. And so that's where the word gossip comes from. Now, if you're speaking with another person about a friend who might be entering a marriage or might be in a relationship or might be taking a job that's over his head, and you're talking with your friend in deep concern about that person, that's okay, even if you don't tell the person. Okay, if you're talking about your child or relative or your two parents, talking about maybe the way a teacher or someone is not really handling the situation, that's concern. That's fine, okay? But what gossip does is it strips people of their value. We're going to talk about that, all right? And it's falsities, and it takes up a lot of time, and you don't do anything. So that's what gossip does. We look at Proverbs chapter 15, verse 4, and it says, a wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue is a break in spirit. Boom. What do we talk about on this show? We talk about the spirit within us, right? Emmanuel, God with us. So when you're gossiping and you're talking idly about people and it doesn't really change you or change them or change the situation because you're not looking to help them, you're just busybodying, okay? St. Paul tells us to mind our own business. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be concerned like the people on this station who have community service, but when we're just idly talking about things that don't do anything. But when you talk wholesomely, the tree of life, right? When my wife had cancer, we went to the cancer center. As soon as you walk in, there's a big thing, a big tree there. It's all gold, and it says, the tree of life. And I thought that was so soothing for me, thinking that we would, and we did, get help there, okay? So we want to be trees of life. We don't want that break in spirit. We don't want to separate ourselves from the being, whether you think it's a man or a woman or whatever, or just a giant glow in the sky. We don't want to break from that spirit. So that's what gossiping does. It breaks that. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 28 says, now listen to this, because put your pencils down, everybody. And yes, Muriel, put your pencil down. Listen to this. Remember, someone who gossips to you gossips about you. Ugh. And gossip separates friends. Ooh. Who are you no longer with because you or they have been the product of gossiping? What friends have you alienated? What friends have alienated you? What have you separated because of idle talk? Proverb. You know, when people say, "Oh, we don't use the Bible. We don't use that." That's from 2,000 years ago. Everything that we use today in our law structure and the way to treat other people started 2,000 years ago. So here's Proverbs saying, and this is so true, remember, someone who gossips to you gossips about you. Pick your friends and the people you associate with carefully. The dangers of gossip. What it does is it steals another person's reputation. A reputation is very fragile. When you gossip, you're helping to destroy that person's reputation. Boom. Value. What does it say in Matthew? It says, you are more valuable than sparrows. I know every hair on your head. That's the value that we have to our Creator. But when we gossip, we take one of God's children and we destroy their reputation, because most of the time people are talking about things that aren't true. And I know everyone in the class is shaking their head, but we've all done it. Maybe we haven't done it recently. We did it in high school. We did it in college. We might have did it a couple of years ago. like I always say, don't airbrush your parents in. Don't airbrush your people that you love in. Don't airbrush yourself in. The only way you can improve what they tell you in AA is to admit that you have a drinking problem. It's a self-diagnose. So it's the same thing. If we want to be better people in this world, we have to self-diagnose and say, yes, at one point in my life, I might have said something about another person that maybe wasn't true or wasn't right. Admit your mistakes. It's the only way you can fix them. If you keep walking through life thinking you're perfect, you're not perfect because you didn't carry a cross up Calvary. So now we move over to Henry Thomas Buckle, and he said this about gossip. Great minds discuss ideas, people like Steve Jobs, right? Average minds discuss events, like most of us, events that we talk about most of the time. Small minds discuss people. Boom. Do we want to be small-minded in this classroom, or do we want to be great minds, discuss ideas, discuss ways we can expand our businesses, discuss ways we can heal our families, like forgiving with our heart, discuss ways we can help the community instead of saying, well, they should. Get in there and do it yourself. They is not a real group. The people at WAPJ are a real group because their butts are in the seat doing this programming. So what kind of mind? Do we want to just idly talk about other people? Or do we want to have great minds and discuss great ideas? 5 tips so you don't gossip. Make a commitment not to. All right? Remember my friend Jim, the word committed? That comes back again. Don't listen to others' people. Form your own opinion about individuals that you're meeting or hanging out with. Don't judge people by the gossip that you hear. Make your own opinion of someone. Don't judge someone by that, okay? Think before you speak. Most of your parents probably told you that. The book of James says that the tongue is like the rudder of a ship. The rudder of a ship is so small, but the ship is gigantic, and it moves the ship. Well, your tongue is the same way. It could guide you or it could crash you into like the Titanic. So watch what you say. Think before you speak. And don't associate with people who gossip, right? What did your parents tell you? If you walk with a man that limps, you'll limp too. So if you're hanging out with some people and all they do is yap about somebody else and this, then maybe begin to separate yourself from them. We got to love all of God's people, but we don't have to like some of the bad habits they have. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Let no corrupt speech come from your mouth. Instead, have words of edification. Boom. Making people feel better. It said, so when people tell you gossip isn't good, it goes all the way back 2,000 years ago. St. Paul is telling the Ephesians, don't have any bad words come from your mouth. Speak words of edification. If you want to talk about someone, tell them something they do great. I talk about my friend Jim. I tell him the great advice he gave me with getting rid of the chickens, the great advice he gave me with the mums. The guy's a genius. My friend Fred, I talk good things. He's helped me manage my life better in terms of finances. My friend Lucille, Lady Boz. Talk about the good things that people do if you want to gossip. But don't tear people apart. It doesn't get them anywhere or you anywhere. Jamie Kilsafi, it's a weird name, Kilosafi, and he says this. This is great. Ready? Popular culture is a place where pity is called compassion, where pity is called compassion, where flattery is called love, where propaganda is called knowledge, where tension is called peace, and where gossip is called news. Boom. That's what popular culture has become. Gossip is not news, boys and girls. News is news, things that are important. Gossip is not news. Telling someone that your friend's daughter had a baby, that's news. But tearing them apart because they bought the house you think they shouldn't have bought. Remember what Abraham Lincoln said? Don't criticize. We're not in their situation. We don't know why they bought the house that they bought, but for them it's a good house. And Gail Carriger, Kindless, that's her last name. She's a humorist. This is funny. I think we're going to the takeaways. She says, I never gossip. I observe. And then I relay my observations to everyone I know. I mean, it's a light way of looking at it, but, you know, if you're going to observe the good things about people and then share that. So we're going to have two takeaways today, one for the gossip side of the talk and one for the procrastination side of the talk. And so we'll start with the procrastination one, and this takeaway is by Edward Young, and he is a English poet. Remember, my girlfriend's English, so we always have to have some English people on the show. He says, procrastination is the thief of time. You never get the time back. Boom. What do we talk about? Forgive with your heart. What do we talk about? Hands on the plow, right? You never get the time back. What do we talk about? Avoiding. Time is going to pass anyway. I think that Dear Abby, Veronica read years ago when she became an accountant. Time's going to pass. Someday is not a day on the calendar, I said earlier. So what are you procrastinating? And I'm not talking about cutting the grass. What relationship are you steering away from because you're hugging your wrath and your anger? Okay? The time's going to pass anyway. Second takeaway about gossip, and this is from Sean Covey, and he wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Successful Living. Isn't that interesting? Highly successful living, not highly successful people in the terms of making money, but highly successful living. We want to live a better life. We want to be the kind of person where we walk into a room, people are happy that we're there. So his book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful Living, Tree of Life. There's nothing wrong with success and money. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the base of all of that, you better have something more in terms of life and living. Because if you think that money and things will make you happy, you're wrong. You know what makes me happy? Last week at Square Dance, they had black light dancing. All the lights were off. We only had gloves that glowed in the dark. I did fabulous. To me, that's happiness. So let's see what Sean Covey says. It is kind of silly, and this is about gossiping, it is kind of silly to think that by tearing someone else down, you can build yourself up. Boom. This is the guy who wrote a book, and a very successful book, by the way. So tearing someone else down doesn't build you up. You want to build yourself up? You do what Mark Allen Hart did this week. He volunteered for all those people who couldn't fill in, maybe do scheduling or vacations or whatever. He made himself available. He was a man of his word, right? What does Jesus say? Make your yeses, yeses, and your noes, noes. He didn't procrastinate. He didn't gossip and say, well, someone can't show up. No, he just showed up. All right? So these are the people you want to hitch your wagon to, okay? People like that, people like Jock Williams, other people that you guys may know, that are the kind of people that are dependable, right? What do we say about procrastination? We become unreliable, right? But not to keep going back to this, but the DJs who couldn't fill in this week, they knew that Mark was reliable. They knew that he would show up, okay? He was able to put his hands on the plow and go forward, not look backward. And everyone in this classroom has that ability. Everyone in the classroom has that ability to be more. You have been created for greatness, not for broken. You have been created to make an impact, not a void. You have been created for more. What we have to do is to see that in ourselves, reach down, correct the thing, make changes, see the faults, correct them, and then bring the better us to the world. And like I say, when you're in a dark room and you light one candle and the next person lights a candle and the next person lights a candle, it's only one candle. But after 100 people in the room light the candle, what do you have? You have a room full of light. And we can be light. And we can get rid of these bad habits by making changes in ourselves. Jock, you want to tie a bow? And then I will not be here, by the way, next week and the week after. Lady Boz and I will be away with family and friends, so just a scheduling note. So, Jock, you want to tie a bow on these funky things we deal with, and then we have a very cool song to go along with all of this.
Well, I think the most important aspect of your topics today was the will to look within for change, because we can't make the changes to be better people unless we're honest about those things that we need to work on. And I think what you stated today that's important is that these things, these two areas that you touched upon, procrastination and gossip, are traits that we all have to deal with. They're all part of our human DNA. And that's why if we are aware of these issues, then as a community, we can overcome them. And if you have those values that are more focused on making things better, making people better, then as far as the gossip aspect of things, you might be able to take that toxicity out of the ethos and replace it with a more kinder sentiment. As far as the procrastination issue is, I have to admit that that's one of my issues because it's like, oh no, you got to do this. Oh no, you got to do that. Oh no, oh no, oh no. But you find the wherewithal to do them. But it's something that I think, at least from my perspective, you try to work on each and every day just to be a little more efficient in your work, if nothing else. So, and, then the other aspect of that is when you add cognitive dissonance to the situation where you're doing things to avoid other things. That can be, just as, harmful in terms of your awareness and recognition of the priority matters in your life. So, as always, T-Boz, you seem to kind of bring these issues a little closer with more clarity so that they're a little more digestible. If you just have a conversation about it, just in general, you might not get the entire gist of the situation, but I think you bring it home in a way that we all can take something from it and try to initiate those behaviors that will not only help us but help our fellow brother.
That's right. You are so right. Nike had a great thing, just do it. So maybe you should put a pair of sneakers, Nike, on your refrigerator. Picture that. So when you're struggling with things, you just do it. So everyone, it is Friday Eve. The Big E is up and going. Supposed to be some nice weather today, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday. But go up there even when it's a little rainy. You get to see stuff you can't see when there's a mountain of people there. We are in the beginning of fall. Enjoy this time of year. It's beautiful, especially up here in the northwest corner. It's like Vermont. So be yourself. Everyone else is taken. You can be better. I can be better. Jock can be better. And we will see you all in 2 weeks. Promise I'll pray for you. You pray for me. Jock, play that song.
Yes, sir.